Wow. Wow. Who was here last night? Wow. I kind of want to continue on tonight from where we kind of left off last night. I really sense the Father wanting to do something deep in people's lives. And you have to understand that a lot of what I'm teaching is what the Father's doing in me. This is not just as a result of my study. You know, I don't go and study and then come up with a message. What I'm preaching is what's really happening on the inside of me. What I'm sharing is the revelation that the Father's speaking to me, and that ongoing relationship that I have with Him is what I get to share with you guys. And my desire and my prayer for you guys is that you just let it go deep. And one thing that I've noticed is this, is that, you know, we talk about faith and we talk about trust. And we often talk about faith and trust in relation to healing or to finances or seeing someone come into the kingdom. So you've got to have faith for those things. But I've actually needed more faith in this season of my life, not in regards to finances, healing, or my family. I've needed more faith to walk with the Father in this season, because I feel like I'm going into uncharted territories. I feel like I'm swimming, or I'm in a boat and I'm out in the ocean, and I'm not quite sure where I'm going, and I've left the shore. I've literally left the shore. And there's very few people out there that are able to mentor and to equip, just because there's so few people that are really speaking on the love of the Father. And I feel that in my heart and in my life. You know, I feel like I'm kind of pioneering something in one sense, but in another sense, I'm also following others that have really inspired me. One man that's really impacted my life, one guy is Ed Purick. Some of you might know Ed Purick. He lives in Southern California. Another man that's really impacted my life is a guy called James Jordan. He lives in New Zealand. And they've gone out so deep with the Lord, and they're not coming back. Amen. And I feel like we're on this journey as well, in my own life, in my wife's life, that we're out there and we're not sure when we're going to come to land. But I think it's exciting. And we're actually needing more faith and more trust in this season than we've ever needed. I just want to continue before I share something, because there's something the Lord's just put on my mind. Last night, one of the things that I touched on in the teaching was the two trees in the garden. You guys remember that? Yes. I touched on the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life. And the whole essence of what I was sharing tonight, and we'll be sharing more about this evening, is about the fact that once we enjoy and partake of the very substance of heaven, the very love of the Father on the inside of us, and remember that this love of God is not something that we talk about or something that we have a theology about necessarily, but it's something that we experience at the very core of our being. Something that is living within us, living within you and I. Now, in relation to these two trees that are in this garden, most of our Christianity, or let me speak personally, a lot of my Christianity up to this point, I've been eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I've been trying to eat of the good, obviously, of that tree, but a lot of my Christianity has been based in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And what a lot of us haven't seen or understood or realized is that when the Lord said to Adam and Eve, do not eat of that tree, what the Father says almost immediately, he says, the moment you eat of that tree, you will surely die. Now, what is difficult for us as believers is to really understand, know, that even by taking of the good within that tree, there is death. There's death within the good of that tree. When people say, I'm going to do what is good, I'm going to do the good thing, or I'm going to be a good person, that is partaking of that tree. And partaking of that tree will actually lead to death. Because when we partake of that tree in that particular way, we are actually turning our back on the tree of life, the very source of life, the very source of love. And some people would say the tree of life in the Garden of Eden actually was Jesus. It doesn't say that, but some people, and I can see how they come to that conclusion. But at the point that we take of the good in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, we are saying, well, we can get Christianity this way. We don't need to get Christianity by the Spirit, by the revelation of love, by the presence of God within our life. We don't need to live out the Christian life from the basis of revelation or love or his presence within us. Therefore, let's just do what is good and we'll be okay. Now, this is what I want to say to you. This is, and I'm just praying that this will land on your hearts. So we have these two trees. We have the tree of life here, which is the very life-giving source that we're called to eat from and live from, the very substance of love living within us. That's the tree that we're called to eat of. And there's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The journey that I'm on in my life personally is a journey away from that tree, and my journey is moving in a direction towards the tree of life so I can be completely and absolutely dependent upon that tree of life. And that is a walk of faith that I've never had in my life before. That has taken me more faith, and it's taken me more trust than many, many other things that I've done in 32, 33 years of ministry. Because where the Father wants to take us, where the Father wants to take you and I, is to a place of absolute trust within our hearts. Where you are completely dependent upon his life-giving source of love and living from that place. We have so many rules, my friends. We have so many rules. And the rules are dangling off the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And the rules are good rules. Now, we're not talking about, the governance of a nation or a state, the legal requirements. I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about our walk with God, how we live as a believer, how we walk with him, how we live with him, and all these things. And so what I'm seeing and what I am understanding is that this Christianity that we're living out really is only being lived by God. He is the only one that can truly live the Christian life. And he's now living it in us. But in that place, Christianity is about heaven coming to earth, heaven coming into our lives and into our hearts, and us saying, Father, we let go and we let you do exactly what you want to do. So a friend called me 2 days ago. I'm having a coffee with my friend, and he's got a Bible school in Orange County that I often speak at. And he got this text message saying, I want you to speak on the Bible school on Tuesday. And the person running the Bible school, on the way to Vegas, I spoke to this person on the phone. And this person said to me, can you teach people how to get free from offense? Well, how to get free from offense. And her thought was, there's a lot of offended people in our Bible school class, on our school of ministry. We don't want them to be so offended. We want them to be happy. Can you teach them and show them from a biblical perspective in relation to the Father's love how they don't need to be offended? And I go, okay. That's really interesting. And so when we deal with something like offense, because let's face it, folks, you know, there's been many times in my life when an offense waiting to manifest, really, just because I was so offendable. And that perhaps was offensive. And so we have issues like offense that we know it's an issue in our life, and we continually struggle with it, and we do our utmost not to be offended. But as soon as something triggers, as soon as a relationship goes sour, as soon as something is said, an action is made, all of a sudden we're offended, and we know we're offended. It's like jealousy. I used to have a very jealous heart. A really jealous heart. And it was the last thing that I wanted. And I couldn't do anything about it. A situation arise and somebody get promoted in front of me or looked at instead of me, and the jealousy would rise up. I'm thinking, that's horrible, that's nasty. And I couldn't help it. And I would try to do certain things to get rid of that jealousy and to push that jealousy down, but it kept on coming. Similar scenarios would arise continually, year in, year out. Then the jealousy would rise up. Even you'd hear a person's name and the jealousy would rise up. And then you'd hear somebody saying, don't be jealous. Well, I try my real best not to be jealous, but I can't help it. It just rises up in my heart. I read this amazing chapter in the Bible, and I'm going to read this to you now. This is in Corinthians, 1 Corinthians chapter 13. But I'm going to start reading from the last statement that's made in 1 Corinthians 14. You see, when they put the Bible together, when the canon of Scripture was put together, these letters that were just one letter without chapter or verse were put into chapter and verse. And some of the chapter endings and chapter beginnings were put in ridiculous places. Okay? From verse 31 of chapter 12, 1 Corinthians says, "Yet I will show you a more excellent way. Though I speak with the tongues of men and angels, but have not love, I have become a sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could move mountains, but have not love, I'm nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but have not love, it profits me nothing." I'm going to say those words are strong, friends. They are strong. It means nothing if there's not the existence of love. Without the existence of love, Paul says it is nothing. Wow. And then it's what Paul says in verse 4. He says this: "Love suffers long, is kind, does not envy, does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, it does not provoke, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails." Full stop. Wow. Now, let me try and explain this. The one that comes to live within us is love. The one that comes to live within us is never offended. He's not offended. Because love is never offended. Do you believe that? Yes. So if the one who is living within us that is never offended is allowed to live within us and grow his presence and life within us, do you honestly believe that there's going to come a point in your life when you can walk on this earth as a Christian being unoffendable? Wow. 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 You see, we've tried to deal with offense from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. People, when they're thinking about offense, they say, "Well, tell me what to do, tell me what not to do, and tell me what to do and how to do it and when to do it, and put all these rules in your life." And somehow, if we build up the right structure around our life, the right social structure, the right emotional structure around our life, we're going to avoid being offended. The thing is that what people don't see or necessarily understand is that when Jesus was speaking in John in the Sermon on the Mount, he said this. He says that adultery is actually in you. Adultery is not just the action. Adultery is a condition of your heart. Adultery is the condition of the heart. And in salvation, it's It's the heart that encounters the very presence and the very love of God. It's the love of the Father breaking into the very core of your being, the one that cannot be offended, living within us, that is the only way that we're going to be changed. That's the only way. It's the only way. Jesus, when he was speaking in John chapter 7, says this. He's speaking to the crowd. He says this is the last and great day of the feast. And Jesus stood and cried out, "If anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink." If anybody is thirsty, let him come to me and drink. Wow. Let him come to me and let him drink. He goes on to say, "He who believes in me, as the scriptures have said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water." For the Christian, that is utopia. For the Christian, that is where we're going. That his life-giving source of love literally flowing in the very core of our being. Wow. And just thinking about that, I feel like I want to cry and weep. Because one thing that I've come to realize is this, is that I can't open my heart. I can't open my heart. But God can open my heart. And when he comes to open my heart. And as he starts to open up my heart, it's like the unpeeling of an onion, layer upon layer and layer. And his presence goes deeper and deeper and deeper in the very core of my being, bringing me to a place in my own heart and life where jealousy becomes something of the past. I can rejoice when other people get promoted. Offense is a thing of the heart. Offense is a thing completely of the past. And whatever things have been said, things were said and done to me. I remember back in 2005 when we lived in Ghana, and the guy that worked with us, that we trained up, we'd poured resources into, we trained him. He then turned behind our back, stole corporation papers from our offices in Ghana, tried to bring us down with another one of our partners, a partner of ours in the USA, got the police here involved, and it was the worst situation that we've ever been through. And when that happened, when that was going on, I was so angry. I was this close away from giving someone the fivefold ministry. I was on the edge, you know. I was angry. I was offended. There was nothing in me that wanted to forgive that person. There was nothing in me whatsoever that wanted to forgive that person. Now, 12 years on, coming on 13 years on from that particular instant, there's no resentment, bitterness, anger, offense at all within my heart. God has done something so deep and at the very core of my being, because ultimately in the core of my being, he's longed to flow. He'd longed that I would experience literally the river moving through the very core of my being. What I discovered as well in this season is that as we are receiving, if you like, as we are soaking in this, and as his love is coming deeper, and as he's breaking into our heart so his river and life can flow within us, things are coming up in my heart, the injustices of life and the feelings of injustice in relation to the way that I have been treated, or the things that have been said, or the things that have been done, the things that have been happened. And I realize that I've got a whole litany, or had a whole litany of situations that I was just holding in my heart, thinking that one day I'm going to get justice. One day it's going to be put right. One day I'm going to be vindicated. And then people would come along and say, well, you know, you've got to forgive. You need to make a choice to forgive. Well, I don't believe in making a choice to forgive. Making a choice to forgive is actually not biblical. Jesus actually tells us in Matthew 18, verse 35, that unless you forgive from your heart, your Heavenly Father will not forgive you. Now, I'd made plenty of choices to forgive people. I used to, be repetitive. I forgive them, and it's just words that are coming out of my mouth, but my heart remains the same. Only when I learned to forgive from my heart did my heart change. Only when I learned to forgive from my heart did my heart change. And so, when we look at what we see in Corinthians 13, in verse 4, I just want to go over it again with you. Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own. It is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. Just a bit of a rewind to last night. Brrr. And what we said is that God is love. The very substance of God is love. And that the very substance of God living within you is able to produce everything that he needs to produce in your life. Therefore, this is what Peter says. 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 2 and 3. And you understand that I'd never seen this before. This stuff is new, and it's opened my mind, and I'm so thankful for this guy James Jordan in New Zealand that has really helped me see some of this at a deeper level. That the very purpose of salvation is that divinity, God himself, will indwell you. That is the purpose of salvation, that divinity would live within you. And as a consequence, divine nature would start to manifest itself within our life. That's an incredible thought. What God is like being produced in you and I, that's just an incredible thought. This is what Peter says. Grace and peace be multiplied to you in the knowledge of God and of Jesus our Lord, as his divine power has given to us all things that pertain to life and godliness through the knowledge of him who called us by his glory, by which we have been given an exceeding great and precious promises, that through these we may be participators of divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. Wow. We're trying to grab divine nature. We're trying to grab something of God. But if we're recognizing that the very substance of God is living within us, his love is literally living within us, his divine nature is going to be starting to be produced through us. Wow. And none of us can in any way imitate what divine nature is really like. None of us can imitate what divine nature is like. But once divine nature and life is within us, and that life starts to work through us, divine nature starts to be manifest through our life. Wow. In 2007, we went back to Ghana with my family. We were living in California at the time, but we went back for the summer because we had to move offices, and the place where we had had the place we had had as our house. And I'm with my kids, and my son, my middle son, was starting to have a really rough time. And he was really kind of struggling with life. How does he fit in life? Who is he? Who is he? And at the same time, there was a lot of sibling rivalry between my second son and my daughter. There was jealousy, there was agitation, and they used to bicker and fight with one another. Most of the time it wasn't physical, but every so often there was a little bit of fisticuffs. And my second son used to get so angry and agitated by his sister. And on this one occasion, he knocks on the, my wife and I are sitting in our bedroom, and it's one of those days when the power's gone out, so we got this little generator going. There's no air conditioning, everybody's sweating, it's 7 o'clock Sunday evening, everybody's worn out. And I hear this noise, this racket, the kids are shouting at each other, they're arguing. And I'm thinking, that's the last thing I want to do. And now I'm getting irritated. I'm getting irritated and I'm getting angry. I kind of, what's going on here? And all of a sudden the knock comes on the door. And you're just waiting for it. As parents, you're waiting for the knock on the door. And you can bet your bottom dollar, the one that really believes that they've been mostly unjustly treated by the other one is going to be the one knocking on the door. And there was my son. And he had this look of literal anger and fury upon his face. It's like his eyes were bulging. His face is red. He's like just a complete epitome of anger. And he says, why don't you do something about Hannah? She's done this, she's done that, and she's done this, and she's done that, and I've had enough. You never do anything like this. And I'm at the point where I could go either way. I'm at the point where now I'm getting agitated, I'm getting irritated, and I'm thinking, how am I going to respond to this? And I've just come into this revelation of love, and I'm thinking, I just got to be careful here, just got to follow this thing out. And I said, Joseph, just come in the room a minute. So he comes in the bedroom, and he sits down on a seat, and he's sitting opposite me. I'm about I'm about this far away from Dean, this sort of distance. Your name's Dean, isn't it? That's good. And Joseph is there, and he's got this look on his face. And I'm thinking, Father, I have no idea what to do. And the Father said to me, tell him that you love him. Now, when the Father says something like that seems completely ridiculous and completely inappropriate, there's this little argument going on in my mind. Are you sure, God? Are you sure you got this one right? Can we reconsider this? Can we work this out? Can we negotiate this? Because I'm not sure. Me telling him I love him right now is the solution. Just tell him that you love him. He came back. So he's got this really angry look on his face, and I look at him and say, Joseph, I love you. Thinking, Lord, it's not working. So I do it again. And I literally sit in this seat opposite him for about 15 minutes. Every 30 seconds to 45 seconds, I said to him, Joseph, I love you and I accept you. Okay? I just kept, that's all I said. I wasn't wanting to make excuses for his sister or rebuke him or chastise him in any way. I just said, Joseph, I love you and I accept you. After about 5 minutes, I see this tear coming down his face. And it's like in my mind, I'm going, God, you are right. This is working. God, this is really cool, man. And again, I just kept on saying, Joseph, I love you. Well, after about 20 minutes, we're both crying. We're both literally overwhelmed by love. And we're just crying our eyes out, And I stand him up. We're right by my bed. And we literally fall on the bed. And I'm just hugging him on the bed. And he's crying like a little baby. And I kept on saying to him, Joseph, I love you. And I'm crying as well. I'm crying with him. Just weeping and crying. We're just there. And we're just a mess of bodily fluid, like snot and everything, that's oozing from every orifice on our face. We're just a mess. And then we eventually, wipe everything else. And then I look at Joseph, and there's such peace on his heart, on his face. He's not got the angry look anymore. You just look on his face, and you just see this incredible look of peace, of tranquility, like there's not a problem in the world. The world's at peace, and I'm at peace with the world. It's like, I'm thinking, 30 minutes ago, he was about to murder his sister. And now, he's completely changed. And you know what? The Father I'm going to say, my son obviously got ministered to, and it really helped my son. That profoundly helped him. But, God also did that to show me something. Because I never believed that love could do that. I never believed that love could bring resolution to injustice. I never believed that love could bring peace where there'd been anguish and disharmony. I'd never believed it. But we read last night, Galatians 5:22, Paul says, And the fruit, singular, fruit of the Spirit is love. The first one is love. Joy, peace, patience, long-suffering, etc., etc. And depicting these 9 fruits of the 9 attributes of God, which are part of his divine nature. But let me tell you something. Patience comes from love. Long-suffering comes from love. Self-control comes from love. Let me tell you something. Joy comes from love. Because the one that we're encountering is love. You see, love equals patience. Patience doesn't equal love. You see, 1 and 1 equals 2. 1 and 1 equals 2. But in mathematics, if you're trying to come to a conclusion of 2, there's multiple ways that you can get to 2. That love produces patience. And what the Father showed me, what the Father revealed to me in that situation with Joseph, was in the same way in 30 minutes that a young man's heart could go from anguish, anger, resentment, bitterness, everything else, to a place of tranquility and peace in the Holy Spirit. What the Lord showed me in that was, this is the way my love changes everybody's hearts. You see, law has not got the ability to change you. It has not got the ability to change you. But love in us has the ability to change us. Romans chapter 13. Romans chapter 13 and verse 10. And this is a verse that is just very recently, it's become more real to me. And it's a verse like a lot of these other ones that I've read over, seen, but all of a sudden there's light on this verse now. There's light on it. Love does no harm to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. Wow. So all the righteous requirements of the law are fulfilled in us, not because of our observance to the law or our observance to the rule. All the righteous requirements of the law are met in us because we walk and live in the Spirit and let his life and love actually flow through us, causing his divine nature to be produced in us. Wow. Wow. I can't remember how much of this I said last night, but I literally took a season of my life back 12 years ago and just simply sat in the presence of God. It was a little bit similar to what Dennis did. The difference is that I had a nice armchair and he had a tent. Yeah. The tent's okay, but the armchair worked for me. And so I sat in this chair and I prayed one prayer. And the prayer was this: Father, come and love me. I was a Christian. I was saved. I was in full-time ministry. I'd already preached to thousands. I'd ministered to many, many people. And I sat in that chair so I felt I was so empty of love. I didn't have a revelation of love. And all that I did, I sat in that chair and I said, Father, I just ask that you would just come and very simply love me. We spent many hours just sitting there. And I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know, when I would listen to Ed Purick or James Jordan or Jack Frost and they would talk about the love of God, it was great. It was profound. It was anointed. There was revelation there. But I still didn't know really what to expect when love broke out. Because I'd never encountered it. I didn't really know what love was really like. I wanted it. There was this hunger on the inside of me that was yearning for it and asking for it, but I still didn't know what I was going to experience and what I was going to encounter. But when it started to happen, when it started to release itself, when this love started to be released within me, and I'm starting to encounter love, it was like my eyes opened. My eyes opened like my eyes had never opened before. I saw things and understood things and encountered things that I'd never seen, understood, or encountered before. It was completely new. And I just become addicted to it. I've just got to be in that place. I want more of this. This is the most incredible thing that is happening. I feel so safe. I feel so free. I felt free. I felt like I felt what freedom was for the first time in my life. You see, freedom up to that point for me had been, don't do this, stop doing it. And if I stopped doing it, I was free. But my heart was never free. But once my heart got it, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is freedom. Freedom, the glorious freedom of the sons of God is defined because we have a relationship with the one that's living within us. It's not about our do's and don'ts. It was so real to me. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I've never felt this before. I felt like a little kid. I'd be crying my eyes out, and my wife, my wife would come up to me, and she'd put a hand on my face, and she says, "Oh, I love you so much when you're crying." I thought, I didn't know what to do with that. I was uncomfortable with intimacy, but I was being brought to a place of intimacy. And then scriptures start to come alive. You start to see things that you've not seen before. And all of a sudden it's like, the Bible goes from a narrow book to this huge book where it's just rich with revelation that the Father wants to bring you into. Ezekiel, this is what Ezekiel said. In Ezekiel 36, verse 36, 36 verse 26. He says, I will give you a new heart. I will put a new spirit within you. A new spirit within you. I will take the heart of stone out of your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. That's what was happening. It's like everything became malleable. My wife will tell you she loves me. She's a lot more comfortable with me now than she was before. Then this is what Ezekiel said, and this is amazing. I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you will keep my judgments and do them. Wow. Read that, guys. That's radical. I will put my spirit within you, and I will cause you to walk in my statutes. Huh. And you will keep my judgments and do them. Wow. My whole idea of Christianity prior to this encounter was all about behavior and rules that managed somehow to exclude love. I had the law, the love of the law. But when love came, it was the law of love. I never believed that God could be so real and alive in me, okay, that I wouldn't have to be conscious about doing right or wrong. I would just walk with him. I would just walk with him. And he would cause me to walk in his ways. I never believed that. I never saw that. I never understood. And it's still freaking out, and it freaks a lot of people out. Because what's security for them are the rules. That's what's security for them. Because what God is doing, he's bringing us away from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And he's bringing us to a place where we're eating and drinking and getting all our nourishment from the tree of life. I will give you a new heart. I will take away the heart of stone, and I will put in a heart of flesh. I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my ways and to keep my judgments. Wow. Wow. The atmosphere is very rich on people here tonight. It was last night as well. It's also tonight. Sometimes in church, we rush revelation. What do I mean by that? I mean this. We hear something, it grabs our heart, it's the Lord speaking, but then we want to do something about it straight away. We rush it. We don't let the revelation percolate and become substance within us. We get the revelation, it's almost like we step ahead of the revelation, and then at some point along the journey, God's doing that. What I'm learning in my life is at the point when God breaks in to give revelation, it also requires some time just to let it just absorb into our heart. Because what's happening in Revelation is your heart is opening. Revelation is happening when something is being revealed within you. But in that revealing, you are seeing something and hearing something for the first time. In other words, in the place of revelation, your senses, your spiritual senses, are completely opening up to God. He very simply longs to pour His love into your hearts. That's what He wants you to do. And in Him pouring love into your hearts, His greatest joy is you recognizing that happening. So we're going to stay in our seats. We don't need to stand up tonight. We're going to stay in our seats. And I'm just going to invite the love of the Father to come and love you. Wow. Just put your hands on your hearts. So, Father, like last night, I ask you that you would come and you would love us. Your very substance living within us would become so real, and we would become conscious of that revelation of love breaking out in the core of our being. So, Father, I just invite you and ask you to come and love this body of people. Just to come and love this body of people. And they would tangibly experience your love and start to eat at a deeper level from the tree of life. So, Father, just come and do that. Just come and do that. Just let Him come and love you. He is already your Father, but He longs to father you. He is already your Father, but He longs to father you.